Okay, Latin 1. Having learned the relatives last week, now we are equipped to read the introductory sentences of stage 15. This will be the last new Latin that we do this year. Following this week's lesson, we are going to close out the year with some systematic vocabulary review. So here is the chart of all of the relative pronouns in the singular. I'd like you, as you're doing this PDF, first off, I'm going to supply you with a dictionary link for Unit 2. Take the PDF and to the best of your ability, do attempt your own translation. I can't stress enough how important it is to try on our own and only then take a look at the video. If all you do is watch the video and copy what I do, you're not going to truly learn the skills necessary to be translating more advanced Latin. So again, take advantage of the opportunity, try your best to translate, then go back, watch the video, make corrections as necessary. Embedded in your PDF are some grammatical questions. So for instance, if I were to ask you, what is qui? Okay, the answer is going to be the other information right here. Qui is the nominative singular masculine relative. Okay, if I asked you what is quam, the answer is going to be accusative singular feminine relative. Now, quod has the same form in both the nominative and accusative singular. Even so, inside of its sentence, it may be the subject of a verb, in which case it is going to be nominative singular. If it's the object, then it's going to be accusative singular. Okay, let's read these sentences. Multi Britanni ad aulam venerunt. Many British, now run to your verb, it's at the end, came to the palace. Senex, comma, qui sceptrum tenebat, comma, erat rex cogidubnus. An old man qui, an old man who. The reason it's qui is senex is masculine and qui is going to be the subject of a verb, so we need the nominative form of the relative. An old man who was holding a scepter. Now, if you don't know what a scepter is like a staff which a king or an emperor might hold, and it's a symbol of their power and authority. Was King Cogidubnus, an old man who was holding a scepter, was King Cogidubnus. Femina prope cogidubnum sedebat. A woman, run to your verb, sedebat, was sitting. Where was she sitting? Near Cogidubnus. Femina, comma, quae coronam gerebat, comma, erat regina. The woman who. Now again, why is it quae and not qui? Well, because femina is feminine. Why is it quae and not quam? Because quae is the subject of a verb. The woman who was wearing a crown. And I guess worth mentioning again, since we're doing distance learning because of quarantine from coronavirus, the word corona meaning crown, the coronavirus is called corona because it does superficially resemble a crown. Was the queen. Multi Romani cogidubno res pretiosas dabant. Many Romans, run to your verb, it's at the end, were giving. What were they giving? Precious things. To whom were they giving precious things? They were giving precious things to Cogidubnus. Donum, comma, quod rege maxime delectavit, erat equus. The gift quod, the gift which. Now, this particular quod is neuter, but it is nominative singular because it is the subject of the verb delectavit. The gift which pleased the king greatly was a horse. Duae ancillae ad regem venerunt. Two slave girls, run to your verb, it's at the end, came to the king. Vinum, quod ancillae ferebant, erat in patera aurea. The wine which. Now, this quod is accusative because ancillae, look at that ae ending, that's your nominative plural ending. Ancillae is the subject of the verb ferebant. So the wine which the slave girls were carrying was in a golden bowl. Now, get ready. This wine is not for him to drink. This wine is going to be part of a sacrifice. Rex vinum libavit. The king poured out the wine. Now, the verb libavit means to pour out, but it is important to note this is a ceremonial pouring out of wine as a sacrifice. There is understood that the deity, the god or goddess to whom he is pouring out this wine, believes that basically not drinking the wine but pouring it out somehow is a sacrificial act. And so you could translate libavit as just poured out. We do have the English word libation, which comes from this verb, which a libation is just a drink. But the original meaning here really is you're pouring it out as a sacrifice. Servus agnum ad aram duxit. A slave led, what the slave led was a lamb to the altar. Now, duxit is perfect tense, okay? Now, the lamb which is led to the altar is going to be a sacrificial victim. We're going to see that the Latin word victima, which we'll translate as victim, originally means an animal, or in some cultures, not Roman, but in some cultures, a human who was sacrificed to a god or a goddess. Over time, the word victim evolved to mean any person who was like a victim of some violence. But the original meaning of victima is going to be a sacrificial victim. And the altar is like some type of a stone or wooden edifice which the sacrifice is performed on top of. Agnus, quem servus ducebat, erat victima. The lamb which. Now, quem here is accusative, singular, masculine relative. The reason we're translating it as which is only because agnus is an animal. If this had been quintus, quem amicus salutavit, okay, then it would have been quintus whom the friend greeted. But here, the lamb which the slave was leading was a sacrificial victim. Sacerdos victimam inspexit. A priest inspected the victim. Now, here's why a priest always inspected the victim. If you had a bunch of sheep and you decided you wanted to sacrifice one of them to the god Jupiter, and you looked at your 10 sheep and you said, this one here, this one's sick, it's kind of weak, it's going to die anyway. Let's go ahead and sacrifice that one to Jupiter and let's keep the good ones for ourselves. The Romans and the Greeks believed that if you did that, that would be an enormous insult to the god Jupiter. So in fact, you inspect these animals to make sure there's nothing wrong with them. If there's something wrong with the animal, sacrificing it to the god or goddess would be understood as a grave sin. So he inspected the victim to make sure it was suitable. Victima, comma, quam servus tenebat, balavit. You'll understand why I said that way. The sacrificial victim, which the slave was holding, said, ba, lawit. Get it? Anyway, we have this verb bleated, which is like what a sheep would say. There's like a whole study in linguistics done, like for instance, do cows really say moo? Well, they do in English, but in other languages they say other things, because people kind of hear an animal noise and they turn it into something audible for themselves. Now, quam here is accusative singular feminine. Again, why we're translating it as which is because it's referring to the animal. Victima is a feminine noun, and that's why we have quam. Finally, sacerdos victimam interfecit. The priest killed the victim.